right. So I'm your host, Anthony Ayeni, or you can call me Double A. I have a special guest with me here today. But before I introduce him, just to start the show, with my introduction, I just want to tell everyone a little bit about my show. We are on the Backyard Talks podcast show. My passion and past experiences with sports motivated me to create this platform to share and connect with you guys. Without further ado, today I'll be interviewing Fred Huerta, boys varsity high school uh, coach at DePaul College Prep. Um, and before serving as an assistant coach at DePaul, he served many years as the head coach at Walter Payton High School. My connection to Fred came from working with him at Theater on the Lake, um, the Lakefront Restaurant, which is a great place to eat at. If you're interested in just looking for new places to eat at. Um, Outside of working in sports, Fred also serves as the event staff team manager at the Lakefront. So Fred, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to interview with me.
Oh, thank you very much, Anthony. It's great to be with you.
Yeah, so this is my podcast show. So, I appreciate you joining and coming on board to hop on the train to get this train rolling. It's been long overdue. And I feel like just with focusing on passions and honestly focusing on what I have an interest in, I felt like this was a good time.
All right, let's get the train rolling. Let's get
All
going.
right. So you know, just as a soft opener, how you doing and how's life going for you?
Oh, you know what, Anthony, doing great. Life is wonderful. Gainfully employed. Um, on top of, I'm gainfully employed by two different employers, actually. But obviously, as you mentioned, Lakefront Restaurant, Lake Theater Lake, and
Yeah.
also DePaul Prep, with being a baseball coach. As far as personally, I have three wonderful children. My oldest is a Marine. He's a captain in the Marines. Just recently got married in October. I have my other son. So my oldest is Christopher. Brendan is my middle guy. He lives in Cincinnati. Just graduated from Xavier. And I have my daughter, who is a junior at DePaul Prep, who um, who actually didn't object to me being a baseball coach at DePaul Prep. So I had to check in with her first before I actually took the job. I'm like, and I realized one thing, Anthony. I coached both of my sons, both Christopher and Brendan, at Peyton College Prep. Pardon me. And then also now being at DePaul Prep, I realized one thing. I'm like, I think I'm stalking my kids. I realize that, but I do it on a baseball platform. Um, Married for 29 years, 29 years, to my wife Patty, who's works at DePaul University.
Wow. So you're a family guy. And that's really big and important. A lot of people, it's just being highly praised, want to be in that association, being family oriented. So like being around your family, celebrating everyone's achievements and, learning from everyone, along any path is important. So, that's really cool to hear. And it sounds like you're doing well, man.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, hey, wake up in the morning a little on the creaky side, but hey, I'm waking up, right?
That's good to hear. So, as you talked about a little bit, how life's going, can you tell everyone about your upbringing, where you're from, kind of how you were brought up, if you have any siblings, and if you also played any sports as a kid?
Sure. Yeah, Anthony. As far as my being brought up, I could not have asked for better parents. My mother and father. My father was born in Chicago. My mother was born in San Antonio. My father worked for the post office for, I believe it was 48, 49 years. My mother worked various jobs, but she was, she did well for herself, considering that at a tender age of about 9 years old, she had to raise her siblings because my her mother, my grandmother, passed away after she gave birth to her youngest sibling. So the road for her was tough, but you know what? She never complained. She always had a very strong work ethic, as well as my father. And I'm very grateful to have had them as parents that have led by example. Um, my I have a sister that's 10 years older than me. I'm not going to do the math, but she's wonderful. She's a wonderful young lady. And I did have a brother, unfortunately, that passed away when I was 2 years old. And actually, Anthony, we were talking about sports and talking about my main sport, my main interest. I love all sports. Don't get me wrong, but my main sport was baseball. Actually, let me go back a little bit. My main sport growing up was actually basketball.
Wow.
Little tiny little Mexican guy, little point guard coming out and shooting guard. Loved basketball, but baseball was always a passion for me.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons why it was a passion, as I had mentioned about my brothers, because it was a passion for him. And we were raised White Sox fans. My mother, my father, I believe, had one of their first dates at Comiskey Park, old Comiskey Park, and but I was born and raised on the north side, so can you imagine? All the kids are like, "You're a White Sox fan. What are you doing here in the North Side?" I'm like, "Yeah, relax." I remember one time, Anthony. I was at grammar school. I had to be maybe second or third grade, and it was opening day. And I think the teacher said, "Hey, it's great. It's opening day. It's great Cubs opener." And she's like, "I'm assuming everyone's a Cub fan." And I kind of raised my hand, and I was kind of like, I'm actually a White Sox fan." And everyone in the classroom was like, "Oh my gosh!" And and I had a couple of the kids came to me and said, "Well, you know what? You got to transfer because you're a White Sox fan. This is Cubs territory." I remember running home, going home, and going to my mom, and I think I was kind of crying. I was kind of like, "Hey, mom, I got to transfer from St. Vincent de Paul Grammar School." And she's like, "What do you mean you have to transfer?" I said, "Well, I have to transfer because I'm not allowed there. I'm a White Sox fan. They're all Cub fans." And the one thing that my mom, she said to me, she's, "You stick to your guns, you stick to what you believe in, and don't ever waver." And once again, being a little kid, I really took to heart with that. I remember marching into school the next day and go, "Hey, I'm a White Sox fan. Deal with it." And so, in essence, so baseball has been really prominent. My brother, as I mentioned about my brother, he was a baseball player, actually a very very good baseball player. Unfortunately, he passed away at the age of 14. He was going into his freshman year of high school, um, and he was recruited actually to play at a now defunct school called St. George in Evanston. But because of that passion that he had, and although I was only 2 years old, he kind of passed down that torch to me unknowingly. But he did it through my mom and dad. And my father would always get us White Sox tickets. My mom would always be there. My mom and dad would go to games. We go to opening day. They'd let me, take off school, have a little personal day to go to White Sox home openers. And I really cherished that. And I was so thankful that they did that for me. And my dad worked a lot. My mom, like I said, she worked, but then she became like a stay-home mom, and she taught me, she really taught me the micro aspects of baseball. I remember watching a game, and she says, "Hey, do you know what the catcher's doing there?" And I'm looking, and that's when he was giving the signs. And I said, "No, I never noticed that." And she says, "Yeah, he's giving the sign to the pitcher for what pitch to throw." And I'll never forget that. It's like it was yesterday, So that's my upbringing. That's what it was. And I was so thankful to have my parents, and they were wonderful. Both of them have passed on, but they're always in my heart, and I always think about them every single day.
Hey, I like that. You're talking about the legacy that your family kind of created through your siblings and your parents. Um, you know, and obviously like with learning the game. That's pretty cool to hear that your mom kind of like broke down the game to you, and, passed down that knowledge um to what you know today.
Yeah, yeah. She was an avid fan. She really was. She loved the White Sox through and through, and I couldn't escape that. But like I said, my dad was also, but he was like he worked so much. But my mom said, "It's okay. I'll take this on, no problem." And I'm thankful that she did.
I also liked the part where you mentioned that, you being a White Sox fan, and you had you had so much like, negativity and hate towards like everyone, all your friends that you're around saying like, hey, like we can't be White Sox fans over here. We're Cubs fans, and you just stood up for yourself, I like that.
At the prodding of my mother. Remember, my mom was like, "You stick to your guns. You don't let them tell you what to do." And I was like, "All right, excellent, yeah." My mom said.
Unfortunately, I would say for me it's a little bit different, but like I would say like that influence on me being a Cubs fan just comes from like the area I grew up in on the north side.
Oh
But
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
but
You
baseball,
know, yeah, Anthony. I'm sorry, let me interrupt. It's kind of funny because in growing up, I was such a avid White Sox fan, and I didn't like the Cubs. I just absolutely, and I think because of the fandom more than anything else. And I just didn't like them, and but then as I getting older and meeting more people, I was so fortunate enough to meet people actually that were in the Cubs organization. And I finally had a little sit down chat with myself. I was like, would you just grow up a little bit and stop with the hate? Now, listen, I'm a Sox fan, true and true. Cubs do what they have to do, and tip of the cap for whatever they're successful. But I'm not going to be that guy with the W flag. I'm not doing any of that stuff. But you know what though? Like I said, I think I grew up a little bit, and I don't have as much angst towards the Cubs as I did once upon a time.
is are all your kids Cubs or White Sox fans?
So both of my boys are White Sox fans, and I'm so grateful that 2005 happened for them. Um, and I think, my daughter just being my daughter, she decided she's like, you know what, I'm going to be the rebel, and she's a so-called Cub fan, I guess. Although she probably goes to more White Sox games than she does Cub games, but
Hmm.
I'll let her do whatever she wants. That's what she wants to do. Fine. I've got my two other boys that'll take care of that. And my wife, she's a baseball fan. In honesty, she really is. And so we're a real baseball family. We really are.
Oh, I love that. Um, can you tell me a little bit how like baseball has influenced your life, since baseball's been your sport?
Yeah. Baseball. Anthony, I think it is a game that teaches you so many things about life. Um, I'd say the number one thing, in all honesty, is patience. If you don't love the game, if you don't really understand the game, I can see how people just don't like the game. Um, it is not, baseball now is a whole different ball of wax than it was back in the 60s and 70s, and maybe even the early 80s. Baseball's an event now. It's a big yeah, it's a big event, orchestrated event. There's so many things that are going on that it's sometimes the game itself is not even relevant anymore. It's about all the other stuff that's going on around it. But baseball still to me taught me patience because it is a thinking man's game. It is a game that once you get to know it and you can really dissect and bisect it, you really will appreciate it. It's a cat and mouse game. It teaches you a lot of things. It teaches, especially being a coach, what I try to transcend to our players as far as the game goes. It teaches you about character, about how you present yourself on the field. It teaches you obviously competition. It teaches you failure. Baseball is for the most part a game of failure. If you think about it, one out of three, you're successful, but you have failed two other times. But it is also, I kind of, by the same token as I say, failure of baseball is also a game of opportunity. So if you transcend that to life, if you fail, you also have to look at something as being an opportunity. And it sounds kind of hokey, I guess, but that's what baseball kind of gives you if you let it give it to you, if you can enjoy it. Baseball is it's amazing, Anthony. It's amazing how this little ball, this little white ball, 108 seams, um, generates so many emotions. I mean, anger. It generates joy. It generates frustration. It generates, just happiness. All from this little ball. And I know other sports do that too, but baseball does it. I think at a level unlike any other sport. So that's what I kind of got out of the game of baseball. In growing up, baseball also was so prevalent in my life as a kid. It's because I enjoyed the game. I enjoyed the game. I enjoyed going out, and yeah, I played little league. And Anthony, honestly, you know what I really enjoyed though in baseball was when I went out with my friends and we played fast pitch. I don't know if you know what fast pitch is, but um, what it is it's we had a white like this white rubber ball that they would sell at truck stores or at regular stores, and we'd go to like a schoolyard, or in my case, it was actually a side of a building. It was a supermarket that I grew up right down the block, and you paint a box, and it has an exit. That's your strike zone, and you measure out. It was probably like 40 feet or whatever, and you hit a pitcher, you had a batter, and maybe you had a fielder. That's it, maybe three. But you got so much out of fast pitch. You got all the aspects of the game, and your imagination would take you away. You're playing in the middle of the street, or you're playing against a wall. But by the same token, I was playing at Comiskey Park. I was playing at Wrigley Field. I was playing at some Major League Baseball stadium. In my mind, in the other kid's mind that's pitching, and the other kid that's fielding, we're all immersed in this game where we feel we're major leaguers. And that's I loved it. I loved it. And I still played it all the way up through college years. A bunch of guys we get out there, and of course we would strut our stuff and see how hard we could throw it. Then later on, we're putting ice on our shoulders because we realize it's a rubber ball. It's not a regular ball. But that's what baseball was. So
As you were
it still is.
describing fast pitch,
Mhm.
you made me start thinking about like Sandlot. I don't know why.
Yeah, it was kind of like that. Yeah, and we did kind of play a Sandlot game. Actually, played a type of Sandlot game. It was called slow hardball pitch. That makes sense.
Hmm.
Probably the most dangerous game that you can play, because here's the reason why. So we get on a field somewhere in school again, or a park, whatever, and we would get two teams, and probably like 18 guys. That's a lot of guys to get together, but have full teams. But here's the deal: we used to play with a league ball, and we would slow pitch the league ball. Now, you probably noticed, but if you ever got hit by a league ball, yeah, that stings. It leaves a mark.
Wait, what is a league ball? I'm
So,
sorry.
like a regular baseball,
Oh, okay.
a regular baseball. Yeah, we call it league ball. It's a regular baseball used in high school, pros, all the other stuff. It's a horse hide baseball, but that ball is hard, and we used to slow pitch it, and I was never a pitcher because I'm like, are you kidding me? I would never want to pitch in these games because, man, that thing comes flying at you. And as a batter, you're going up to bat. You want to crush the ball. There was no bunting. There was none of that stuff going on. You wanted to crush the ball. You wanted to sting it. And really in all the places that we would play, there were no fences. So you had to probably jack one, hit the gapper, that would probably be like a home run. But nonetheless, but that was kind of like the Sandlot for us, but those are the games again in baseball that we even learned, playing, like I said, slow pitch league ball, and we learned our defenses. We learned how quickly we can get out of the way. It was great for agility.
I love that. We're just focusing on the game of baseball, and you growing up in the Chicago area, how far did you go with the game? And how did you transition that into coaching? I know you talked a
Anthony,
little bit about your kids.
yeah, Anthony. I played little league, and I got to tell you, um, little league actually influenced my coaching philosophy. Because quite honestly, in little league, I had horrible coaches. I mean, really bad coaches. I had played. I loved the game. Like I said, I remember playing for a team. I actually played for a boys club, and they were in a little league, this league, and this is back like 1974, maybe 70, 73, 74, 75, right around there. Anyway, and I remember playing in this league, and this is the other thing: the gap in the years. It was from so no wait, so this is had to be like 72. The gap was from 10 to 14. That was the teams. So you're the 10 years old or 14 years old, you're still on the same team.
Wow,
So a 10-year-old playing a 14-year-old,
that's a big
that's a
difference.
that's a big difference. Yeah, you got this 14-year-old that's throwing some gas. And as a 10-year-old, you're still kind of developing, and you're up there at the plate going like, what the heck? But anyway, get back to the coaches though. I did well. I was a little middle infielder. I was more of a second baseman. I'd play outfield every once in a while. And I remember I made the All-Star team, and I was on top of the world. I remember telling my mom, and she's like, "Oh, I'm so proud of you." And once again, it goes back to my parents. I'm like, yeah, you know what? They're gonna like this. And I played in this All-Star game. It was great. And then we had like the second half of the season, and I remember I had a bad game, on the field and at the plate. I think I might have been like 0 for 2, 0 for 3 or something like that. Struck out a couple times. I made a couple of errors, I think. And this was all probably in one, I think it was in one game. The coach sat me, he benched me, and I think I got one more game for the rest of the season simply because of that one game. And I thought to myself, yeah, maybe I should chime in a little bit. Hey, coach, remember I made the All-Star team, but he no, it was more about it was really about winning, not developing the kids.
Mhm.
And he just felt like, okay, you probably came to the end of your cycle, you're done, and I'm going to put you on a bench and leave you there with no explanation whatsoever. And I realized as I got into coaching, I'm like, I will never ever coach like that. So going on in high school, I actually, my freshman year, I went to a seminary, which did not have a baseball team. I went to a seminary. Really, it with full transparency. I went to a seminary to play basketball.
Mm.
With a couple of my buddies, three of my buddies, we were like the original dream team. We all got together, played at St. Vincent de Paul Seminary out in Lamont, Illinois. We were boarded out there, and so like I said, they didn't have baseball. They had slow pitch softball, like a co-ed rec league. That's about it. So my freshman year, I didn't play organized baseball. My sophomore year at my high school, which was Gordon Tech, which is now DePaul Prep, I had tried out, and maybe I might have been a little rusty, but I was one of the last cuts, and I was really, once again, I was kind of like, what the heck just happened? And it was in Anthony, this is how it was back then. It's kind of like the good old boys network. Um, Athletic director, wanted to make sure that all of his football players are playing all the sports besides football, and a lot of guys, got roster spots because they were football players. And that's the case. That's fine. It was my first year at Gordon Tech. I was not there my freshman year. They didn't know me, but it was a gut punch. It was a gut punch. But you know what? Once again, I still refer back to my mom. Like, don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. So baseball kind of ended there as far as my playing days. But I was really a student of the game. I developed a wonderful friendship with a friend with my one friend who's actually very prominent in Major League Baseball now, and we would go to so many White Sox games. We would go, he kind of took me under his wing because he worked for the White Sox, and I got a lot of education in baseball at the major league level that not many people would get, and especially not being involved in the game. So I literally took the ball and ran with it, and and then I go on to coaching, and I coached Christopher, my oldest, in t-ball, and then Brendan came up the ranks, and I coached both of them, and then I went into and they went to high school and coached them, and so I would say I've been involved coaching baseball. My gosh, let's see, Christopher's 24 years old, he's 27, so 23 years, right around there. And Anthony, let me tell you something about coaching baseball as a parent. You probably hear about this a lot about parents in baseball, especially competitive baseball and travel teams in high school. And let me preface that as parents, you want nothing but the best for your children. By the same token, you kind of get a little out of whack. You get a little bit too enthusiastic, and let's put it lightly. You tend to live vicariously through your children, and that's not a good thing most of the times. And you know what? I was guilty of that. I really was. I as a coach, you always hear about the coach's kids. Either number one, they get favored, which I really went out of my way not to do that, but it still kind of hurt them a little bit because they had the talent, but they still played. But even more so as as a kid of a coach, it's how tough you are on them. And I was kind of thinking about this, and I did it to both of my kids, both of my boys, and I deeply regret it that I was so tough on them. And once again, talk about growing up. After seeing them in high school, and don't get me wrong, I was still strict, but I had to apologize to them and say, I'm sorry for being a whack job, you know. But it's a weird cycle because you want nothing but the best for your kids. But when I'm said and done with coaching, Anthony, I really do want to get some of my colleagues, get together with parents, travel high school parents, and kind of have a clinic for them, and tell them that they need to live in the present, live to support your children as they're playing baseball, but not live in their shoes. So but coaching to me is a passion. I'm sorry that I took that route initially in my early years of coaching, but it taught me. And Anthony, the bottom line is in coaching is that the day that I am not learning anything new about the game, coaching wise or anything, I think is the day that I hang it up. I don't think I'll ever hang it up because I'll always want to learn something. There's always something new, and technology now is kind of crazy. I mean, I got to catch up with all of that stuff also, but that's my philosophy as far as you just as a coach, and we have to present that to our kids, to the kids we coach. Unless because then we're being hypocritical. We're teaching these kids this, that, everything else. But if we're not teaching ourselves, then I think we're setting the wrong example. But in baseball, obviously, technique, but to me, Anthony, the biggest, and I think underestimated part of baseball is the mental aspect of the game.
That's very raw, and I think that's important that you mentioned that. Well, as you just talked about this whole time, like how your coaching philosophy has evolved over the time, you've experienced a lot of lessons, which is good because if you're not learning, you're not growing. I think that's essential. And then as you were talking about your kids, and coaching them, did you ever did you force the game on them or did you let it come to them? You know, I always want to, I always try to ask that with parents and people that are pros or just successful around the game of whatever sport they're focusing in.
Yeah. No, I don't think I forced. I don't think I did. But baseball was so prevalent within the family. I think it just came naturally to them. Um, you know, Both of them played in a house league in a park that we live by over here. I live in the Northwest Side, Portage Park, and they played at Portage Park. And Christopher would t-ball, and he's a lefty. So I kind of looked at it and go, hey, that's kind of cool, a lefty in baseball. And he enjoyed the game. He really did. I saw him in um, he unfortunately my father had passed away since when he was born, but his grandfather on his mother's side, on Patty's side, was a huge baseball fan. I mean, he played baseball in the Army back in the 40s, the 30s. And so he was also a big influence with both of my sons, with both Christopher and Brendan. So I think that because of the love of the game and because it was so prevalent within the household and within our lives, that it just kind of came naturally for them. So that's why they love the game. They loved watching the game. I've always told them, I'm like, hey, if you want to, you got to learn. You're not only going to learn from me, but you can learn from watching games. And the thing is, Anthony, the thing is, I really, really wanted them to watch the college game. Pros is good. It's great because you love the pro. You love the White Sox or Cubs or whatever it was. White Sox. Anyway, but the college game, it's still about it's a range from an 18-year-old to a 22-year-old, and that's still a developing brain. And yes, the gifted ones, the ones that the good Lord struck down, lightning on their arms and their bats and said, "You're gifted," and those stood out. But it was still a game that's played that where my kids can go, "Oh yeah, I could do that. Oh crap, I made that kind of mistake," and I did that. I did that. Oh, I could do that. And to me, the college game was just so very genuine in natural, as is the high school game. But for them, I always felt like you try to elevate up and just to see where you can go with the game. So never forced upon them. They love the game, and I was very thankful for that. Um, you know, they could have stepped away easily based on my coaching philosophies early in their lives, but they did it. They stuck with it. They were tough. They were mentally tough. They were tough kids. No, they just loved the game, and I was very happy that they did.
I think that's cool. And just to talk a little bit about, your perspective on the game of baseball in college, I think I agree with you spot on that, the fundamentals are there just as much as in high school as in college. And you can look upon just not just even focusing on baseball, majority of sports before you get to the professional level, that's still where that grit and that hungry desire is still there because it's easy to um take your foot off the gas pedal once you're in the pros a little bit because you're getting that money and all the extra stuff, but you know that grit and that desire to make a name for yourself and show rep out for your city, I think can be sold there.
Yeah, Anthony. You know what? It really uh, hit me, not hit me, but where I really educated myself on the game and how the passion could be in the game was I was fortunate enough to be able to take Brendan's class his senior year. We went to the Dominican Republic,
Wow.
And yeah, it was a great trip, and it wasn't just a baseball trip. It was a trip that we did community service. We immersed ourselves within the culture, and it opened the eyes of our players. But the thing is that Anthony, we would play games, and they would schedule games, and we play games against 16U teams, 15U teams, um, and like I said, we did community service. But as we would go into these stadiums, or they called them stadiums, or they were more like bigger ballparks that had some seating and so forth. Um, I remember we got there for our first game. I think we got there like around like 10 in the morning. And as the bus pulls up, first of all these kids come running to the bus because these are guys from America. These are guys from the United States of America. What do they have? Let's take a look at their gear. Our kids, we had nice bats, nice gloves, backpacks, the whole shebang. And we're getting off the bus, and these little kids, and these kids are just looking almost with adulation at our kids, at our guys. And then and then I realized, the one coach would come to me, and I'm like, oh, I said, you have a lot of kids here so early in the morning, 10 o'clock. He's like, Coach, they've been here since 6 in the morning. They are practicing baseball, and these are kids 6 years old, 5, 4 years old, 4, 5, 6, all ranging all the way up to maybe 12. That they've been in the field since 6 in the morning. They take a little break to watch our game, and then they're back on the field again, and they're not off that field until maybe 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And for them, it was it wasn't only their passion, but it was potentially maybe their opportunity to thrive in the game and to come to Major League Baseball and be that great player that so many other players that came out of Dominican, that they revere, that they hail them, and they want to be that next player. And it's not, and part of it is that it's because of their lives. They feel that, um, you know, you're a Major League Baseball player in America. You're going to have the best of the best, and they want to get out of um, their livelihood, or wherever they're living now. Although let me tell you, it's wonderful. It's so beautiful. But that's what the Dominican baseball culture is, and I'm glad that my kids got to see that. That trip, it really affected me. I'll never forget it. It's a lifetime memory, and it is for all the kids that went. I hope that it was, and it was. And I was so thankful that I met this gentleman, Sam LeBeau, who actually coordinates all of these Dominican trips for high schools and colleges. And this guy is outstanding. And he put us on a schedule, and there was no fooling around, and it was very disciplined. But the community service was baseball was one, community service is 1A. And it taught life's lessons to our kids. So I think I kind of got off track there, but I'm just saying, as far as baseball goes, that's I would hope that someone involved in baseball in one manner or another would involve themselves in something of this aspect. So,
I think that's all you can ask for, as a coach, as a player, a fan, or just, an outsider looking in on the game, experiences, lessons that you can be taught and learn, that you can learn from, and, overall that sense of, pride and experience that you're able to gain just from a collective amount of time with your team, coaches, and the impact you're able to make on the game. So, I salute you on that, because a lot of times, being in America, like, people don't realize how much privilege we have. So that definitely
oh,
sounds
absolutely,
pretty cool.
yeah, yeah, Anthony. And I got to tell you, I would be remiss if I did not mention this. I really in this platform and able to do this now, I really, really have to tip my cap to all the coaches that are out there. They are fantastic people. Yeah, there are some that may be a little overzealous. There may be some that sometimes it's about them. It is what it is. Nonetheless, especially being in the Chicago public school system, coaching in that, it's not easy, Anthony. It's not funded. A lot of times we shell out our own money with no complaints, absolutely no complaints, to make our teams better or to help the kids out or whatever. But and like I said, all coaches out there. I am so grateful that I'm involved in DePaul College Prep because I think we have outstanding coaches. I mean, just Sammy Cologne, who's the varsity baseball coach, the head varsity baseball coach at DePaul Prep. His first year last year, we go downstate. But you know what though? Yeah, a lot of it had to do with talent, but it had to do with how he treated his players. You treat your players with respect, and we're all on the same wavelength. Every single coach that was in that coaching staff last year, we're all on the same wavelength. We did not veer. We have our own, philosophies here and there, but it was all basically the same united feeling is to help our kids and make sure they understand that to be successful, not win all the time, but to be successful. But Anthony, getting back to the public league coaches, those guys, man, they work so hard. I can rattle off 10 of them, but they know who they are, and if they're hearing this, if they hopefully hear this, my tip of my cap to them. And Anthony, I'm gonna just one more thing, if you don't mind. It's the umpires. Listen, man, they're not the enemy. And we teach our kids, if a game comes down to one call and it might have been a blown call, maybe it is, it's not because of that one call. It's what we did throughout the game. We did put ourselves in a successful situation that one blown call was going to affect, that caused failure. I know a lot of these umpires out there, man, and they catch their wrath, and a lot from parents. How dare you call a strike like that on my son? How dare you take this game away from our team that's undefeated? Those guys, man, they really are the heart and soul of the game. They work so hard at their craft. Yeah, there are some that, I've had a run in with one or two, and there's been maybe 0.1% that I really felt like they should not be umpiring. But other than that, but honestly, I know it sounds weird because as a coach, you're just like, but I really do have to tip the cap to them also, because it's not an easy job. And you know what? There's a shortage of umpires now, Anthony, because of the wrath that these Anthony, kids. There are kids that are like 11 years old, 12 years old that are umpiring in these parks, and they're catching the wrath of these parents that are in their 40s and their 50s.
No, you bring up a good point because going back to when I played baseball as a kid, like in youth sports leagues, I started doing that like when I was like about that age from like 12 to like about 14 or 15. And I'm umpiring like little league games, and then these parents are like real passionate, like, hey, that was a strike. Or like he was safe, he wasn't out. Like, you just
You
gotta let.
understand? You're taking away a scholarship from my kid that's 10 years old that I know is going to play in Vanderbilt, that I know is going to play in Louisville because of that one call. It's it's like, oh my gosh, and I've seen it firsthand, and I don't know. Once again, I know the emotions get the best of everyone, but that really is the reason why there's the umpire ranks are diminishing. and it's because they're kind of like, I don't know, do you think I want to spend a Saturday afternoon where I can be doing something else with my friends or playing baseball or doing whatever, and I'm catching the wrath of parents, and they're literally, some are literally swearing at them. It's like, my gosh, seriously. Ah, so all the all the umpires from 10 years old all the way up to 70, even 80 years old. My gosh, tip of the cap to you. Thank you for what you do.
You gotta show homage to, like, where respect is due. And you gotta salute everyone that, gets you to the point of where you're at, and just appreciate it in the moment, because time doesn't last forever.
No, and Anthony, I truly believe in leading by example. You know, uh, um, if you're a parent that's riding a 10, 12-year old, 13, 14-year old, and you're riding him hard, don't come crying to me when your kid is doing the same thing and he's sat him and we're sitting him on the bench because of his attitude. Seriously, Anthony, I know there's a lot of kids out there that have wonderful talent, but sometimes they're a little skewed the wrong way as far as like with their attitude and the lack of teamwork, and that's where us as coaches, where we come in. We're not going to recreate the wheel, but we certainly want to send them on the right in what we feel is the correct path for success. And a lot of it, and again, it goes back to the parents. It goes back, Anthony. I want to say that when I had parent meetings, I would always say to them, I really hope that you could be there at the games. And it's tough sometimes because, man, March and April in Chicago, it's cold. It is cold, but there were, I was lucky at Peyton, and same with DePaul Prep, that we had wonderful parents. But I always told them, I always said, no matter how old they are, if they make a great play, if they have a great hit, whatever, almost the first thing they do is they look up in the stands, or they look in the seats, they look out somewhere. Did you see that, mom? Did you see that, dad? And it might be a glance, but I've seen it in all my years. I see it all the time, consistently. And that's where in having parent meetings, I was like, just realize that they do look at you. They do look up at you. They do look, you have an effect on them, so hopefully it's a positive one. But once again, I was guilty. We're all guilty of getting a little bit over the edge sometimes, but um, you know, we all have to lead by example, bottom line.
That's true. And just focusing on coaching right now, and with all your past experiences, um, how do you, with the teams that you've coached in the past or even currently right now, how do you balance the development of like individuals, individual athletes, with the overall success of the team? So like just focusing on, like, on players that are special, that, like, you know or just in general, all the players on your team that need to develop to be great. How do you balance that with the overall team success? Like, because you remember you talked about before, um, like how, like, oh, you had one coach that, like, disregarded you after making the All-Star team. He kind of just looked past you. But like I've seen a lot of coaches in the past, some are like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna focus on wins. So I'm putting the best product out there. If you like, because at the end of the day, that's what everyone wants to do, is win. But at
Yeah,
the same
yeah,
time, too, you gotta, I mean, some coaches are like, okay, no, I'm not going that route. I'm playing everyone I can so they can develop to the best potential, because we're all out here to play. So how do you
yeah,
balance?
yeah. It's a delicate feature there. Anthony, I basically, in just being a coach in general, being a head and now an assistant, it's my mantra with all the kids is that you get out of the game what you put into it.
Mm,
Okay. Um, it's like life in general. If you want to succeed in life, if you run promotions, you work hard. Um, and the same thing like with baseball. You work hard at the game itself, but you cannot sacrifice like academics, anything like that. It's a very rare bird that's going to come along that's going to be like a Bryce Harper. I'm not saying that he wasn't academically, talented, but that was, someone like him. But the bottom line is that 99% of the kids that are still playing high school baseball have to work hard, and they both and on the field and off the field. So when it comes to special players, and we do have a lot of special players, it's and again, like I had mentioned, it's not reinventing the wheel. It's kind of looking at them and kind of seeing. And I think what I had mentioned before is that the mental aspect of the game is highly underestimated. Um, I'm going to use one of our guys as an example. Is that a wonderfully talented player? I had noticed though that at bat he was he was always eager, get back in the box, and you can see that his mind was racing. And as the mind is racing, it doesn't give your whole body an opportunity to catch up to it. Okay, and so your body's being reactive to your mind racing, and that's where you tend to not succeed. Okay, so I saw him, getting frustrated. Oh, I should have swung at that. Oh, an outside pitch. That should have been a strike. Blah blah blah. So I had to pull him aside, and I said, "Hey, man, slow it down a little bit. Slow it down a little bit. Here's what I feel that may help you. And what it is called a focal point. And I just told him, I said, grab your bat, hold it vertically, take a look at the bat, look at the focal point, take a deep breath, get back in that box. You've slowed down, you calmed yourself down. Now you can focus on that pitch coming in. And Anthony, I don't want to pat myself on the back, but finally it got through to him, and it changed his game a little bit. I mean, he was becoming a little bit more successful because he was able to slow it down a little bit. He was a little eager beaver because he was he's a freshman playing on a varsity team. I got to prove something. And but no, he had nothing. You know what he proved? He proved that he can still be coached. And to me, that was the biggest thing. And to me, I love the kid for that. But there's a lot of kids out there, pitching wise, the same thing. Hey man, you're showing a little bit too much emotion out there, on the mound. Until someone invents that time machine where we can rewind what we did, you just got to go with the flow. You made a bad pitch. It is what it is. Move on. Just keep moving on. And so that's to me, Anthony, to kind of answer your question, to me, teaching the kids the mental aspect of the game, the mental toughness, the breathing techniques, breathing, again, underestimated. Hey, we do it every day. But it's about taking a breath. It's about bringing it in, holding it, letting it out. Bring it in, hold it, let out all the bad stuff. It's all that breathing. It's about soothing. It's about focus. It's about all of that. So to me, that's what it is when you get these kids and you let their talents take them where they may be. And yeah, Anthony, it is kind of heartbreaking sometimes when you see a lot of these kids that are showing up every single day, and they're not going to get a lot of games, but it is so critically important that we as coaches recognize them, because they're the ones that are helping us in practice. They're the ones that are supporting us at games. They're the ones that are keeping the chemistry of the team together. They're the glue. They really are. And you cannot be a team without those role players. You just simply can't. But they still love the game. And again, when it comes to coaching, that's where we go to those players and go, how can we help you develop your game a little bit more? Here, maybe go this route. And sometimes the switch goes on and you got a great problem where you're going to like, oh man, I got this kid that's really developing. We got to get him out there. who do you switch out now? How do you do that? It's quite the balance. It's a delicate balance, but you know what though? Overall, we have great chemistry, and you have kids that understand, and you're honest with them. Once again, you get out of this game what you put into it. There are kids that put a tremendous amount of work into this game, and they get a lot out of it. There's some other kids that maybe they don't, and maybe they don't want to, but they still want to be involved in the team. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And like I said, they are the glue. So that's how I mean, in my philosophy, and I believe that it is the philosophy with a lot of other coaches, is that's how you handle that balance of your really talented players to the ones that are, I call them role players, Anthony. They're not bench players. They're role players. They definitely have a role in the team, and it's a very important one.
No, I agree. The key word that came to my mind as we were just talking about your experiences with coaching kids at different levels, and how you had to like break it down for them, about helping the team overall with the team success is emotional intelligence. Because you need that, like, there's sometimes I'm gonna play, there's sometimes I'm not. But if it's gonna help the team in any way I can, I gotta bring it. I got to bring the energy. I got to bring in the focus each and every day that I'm playing. So, I think that's great that you were able to help out a lot of kids with that, with those moments that they were like growing. And I think of it also as like growing pains, because sometimes we get too excited. The things that we want we don't get. How can we learn from them to continue to push forward? And I think that's essential.
Yeah, Anthony. Once again, that's life, and that's what baseball is teaching you. You're once again, it's that small ball that's going to generate joy, excitement, emotions, disappointment, regrets, anger. All of that stuff is going to come through in baseball. And once you're that baseball player, I tell you what, though, it prepares you for life. It truly does. It really does. And one of the things is my goal, or my hope is, obviously my hope is that all the kids that come through are very successful in their baseball careers. They can define their own success, but they're successful. But it's that I would just love to see. I see so many kids, Anthony, that I think are going to be outstanding coaches. I really do, and I know the temperature of this of the country, and the times now is a little erratic at best. But what kind of lights my fuse is seeing so many great kids and their leadership skills, and knowing that this country is going to be in their hands. Someone like you know, and knowing that they're going to lead, and that's what we want them to do, and hoping that they're coaches. Because Anthony, being a coach is not only in a sport; it's also like for me in my job, as you had mentioned at the lakefront or theater lake, is that's kind of like my managing philosophy. I'm a coach, man. I'm not here to boss you around. I'm not here to tell you you did this wrong all the time. I'm here to say that if hey, if you encounter failure, we're gonna find success. Um, it's about respect. It's about respecting our kids, and hopefully they respect back to us. It's so coaching not only in a sport, but coaching in the game of life, coaching my kids, coaching you guys, coaching employees. Um, that's where coaching is, and that's where I feel I have the best job in the world of being a coach, because I can transcend it to different parts of my life, and different aspects of my life. So I think I'm talking to a great coach right now. I can see one blooming right now. I see he's right in front of me. There he is. He got a haircut.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
no, Anthony, I do have to say I love the fact that you're doing this. I've always thought the world of you. And the thing is that with what you're doing right now is you're coaching. You're presenting different aspects of different personalities of different people to hopefully a great audience that may learn something or may go, hey, that guy's full of crap. Whatever it is, you're still presenting it to them as being a coach, I think you're gonna do really well. You're gonna be very successful, and I'm proud of you.
Hey, I really appreciate it. I would like to say I do look up to you as well. I realize as I get older now, just the impact that people have in my life. You never know how long you're gonna have with somebody, so you just got to soak everything in and learn as much as you can. I realized like the greatest lessons in life come from the people you meet. And like I've learned from you, and I'm still learning from you till this day as I interact with you. And in general, like I think we just have to continue to push that message forward.
Yeah. It is a message that it has to definitely be a push forward, and you're definitely going to be the beacon, no doubt. You will affect so many lives with just your podcast. There's no doubt about it. And every guest that you have on, hopefully that we just want to contribute to your success, and hopefully give a nugget or two here and there that someone may pick up. And I appreciate you, having me on your show. I think it's great. I was a little nervous, I'll admit. I was kind of prepping myself last night. I couldn't sleep. But no, the bottom line is that hopefully I've given you some answers, or I've given you some fodder for what you could continue on with. But yeah, I just think that uh, you know a lot of stuff that's done now, and like I had mentioned about the climate of the country, and how things could get tough here or there. But um, I think if we have good leadership, I think if there's just sometimes we could just take a time out. There's nothing wrong with taking time outs. I mean, just go take that time out, grab that Gatorade, grab that water, more water than anything else. Hydrate yourself, hydrate your mind, hydrate everything, because it's you're lubricating things to the point where you could continue moving on. I think we're going to be okay, and again, a lot of it has to do with young men like you that will carry on a very positive torch, and keep it going, man. Keep it going.
Appreciate it. So as we move forward just with baseball talk,
Mhm.
uh, how has like throughout the years of you being in the game and interacting and viewing it as a fan, as a coach, as a mentor, all the above, what have you seen? Like it can be on any level, like you mentioned, little league, high school, college, or pros. Um, what would you like to see change, and what have you liked so far from being around the game? Because there's so many things.
Yeah. Um, I think boy, that's kind of a tough question, only because I don't really want to speak my mind. Um, I think the adulation for the pro players is getting a little misaligned.
What do you mean by that?
The adulation for pro players, I think, is more based on their how much, but how the size of their contract.
Mm.
Um, and I think it kind of, I don't want to say it sends a wrong message, because well, maybe it does. I don't know. But a pro player has a tremendous amount of influence on kids. And I see some players that, just in my humble opinion, that the greed factor really kind of sets in. You know, by the same token, we'll say this to everyone, including kids. As a kid, if someone you trusted came to you and said, "I'm going to give you all the best baseball equipment. I'm going to give you all the hydration, all the proper foods. I'm gonna feed you the best. I'm gonna do everything. You know, you as a kid, you go, heck yeah, I'll take that. And now, you see these players getting thrown $300 million contracts, 400, $500 million contracts. Yeah, if someone throws me $500 million, yeah, I think okay, thank you, appreciate that. I hope that you do some good things with that. But I'm not one to judge. But I think that this whole economic situation of baseball, quite frankly, is getting out of hand, and it really and it's kind of dividing a lot of people to a degree. There's a lot of people that are starting to kind of like turn their backs, not necessarily on the game, but the temperature of the game, because players are prima donnas. You know, um, there was a there was something that came out, and I don't like pointing out players, but I'm going to point this one out. Anthony Rodon was asked about the season, 162 game season, and he says, "Oh yeah," he goes, "We got to shorten that." He goes, "It's way too many games, way too many games." Well, yeah, you can say that now because you signed a 150 million, $200 million contract.
Yeah.
And in my eyes, you signed that contract, you're making that type of money, 162 games. Kind of suck it up, buddy.
Yeah, because some of
You're
these
get,
guys sit out, right? Don't they sit out throughout the course of the game, like the season? Like,
yeah, but honestly, Anthony, until you're in that locker room and you know exactly what's going on, I can't judge. There's a lot of things that go on. I have been lucky enough to be in professional locker rooms, and I've seen a lot of stuff, and the temperaments of people, how they accept things. Um, I've been lucky enough to see that, and I think I'm thinking in sports in general now. Also, not only just the game of baseball, but I think I would imagine. Wouldn't you think that maybe baseball players are the highest paid athletes? I mean, as a whole unit. I know soccer players. I know a lot of them get like these huge, crazy amount of contracts or whatever. But I think overall, with the amount of players, I think it might be the highest paid. Wouldn't you think so? Wouldn't you think?
for sports leagues.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Baseball.
As far as
Yeah,
value, I want to say baseball. It goes like probably baseball, soccer, and then basketball.
yeah, yeah. So, but baseball, it's 162 games, whatever. Um, I see that, and like I said, I just think that that's kind of like taken away from the game. I think, but it is what it is. Contracts, any contracts, but especially like baseball contracts, that sets up just a firestorm of criticism and a firestorm of opinions. And that's this day and age now. Oh, Anthony, you know what? I don't like the way you smirk there. I'm going to go on here. I'm going to be a keyboard warrior. I'm going to go, Anthony smirk this way,
Mhm.
and then that's how that firestorm starts. And it happens with athletes also. So I don't mean to be talking out of both sides of my mouth, but I guess what I'm kind of saying is that when you get those type of contracts, you better be prepared to take on a firestorm of opinions and criticism also. You know, but I hate to see that kids seeing that because it takes away from the game. Once again, you got to go back to the game, that you love the game, that you love the fact that it's strategy involved, everything we talked about before. So that's where I see the temperature of the game, and now with social media and now everyone's opinion, every single story, Anthony, every story that you see has a comment box, and everyone's has a comment, and I'm guilty of this. And I look at comments, and then I just turn it off. I'm like, I can't take this. I some of it might be spot on. But honestly, a lot of it is not. It's your humble opinion. I don't even think it's humble, but it's an opinion that's generated with no accountability. And that's what's happening now in sports networks. There's no accountability. Tell me how many times have you seen a reporter or have you seen someone come on and go, you know what? I was wrong. I was wrong
Mm,
about this.
no.
It's a rarity. So and baseball's caught in that trap, but I still love the game. I don't think I'll ever not love the game. Um, I hope that eventually, if I have grandchildren, a boy or girl, that I would want them to be involved in baseball, and I hope that I can hope that, including my kids, that they would raise them to the point where it's all about fundamentals. It's about teaching them how that game contributes to their life, and then when they get older, they take it from there. But I don't think I'll ever not like the game. Um, it's changed. It's changed dramatically since I was a kid. You have more wild card teams, but it's all generated by revenue. Everything, but all sports is generated by revenue. Anthony, the bottom line is that sports now at a professional level is entertainment, pure and simple. And that's my opinion. That's what I feel. It's entertainment, and you're going to pay for it. But when you slice out the entertainment, the pro part, and you get down to the college and the high school level and grade school and in youth leagues, it's still about the game. But I just don't want kids to have false hopes and think I'm going to make it. I'm going to get a $300 million contract because they got all this adulation in a travel team, and then they go to high school and they start developing these attitudes, and then they get adulation there, and it's a tough fall. I've seen it. It's a real tough fall because if you're looking at percentages to make it to a professional baseball team, it's a global game, Anthony. It's not just an American game anymore. You know what I mean?
It's
It,
business.
it's a business, but it's global now. It's not your chances once upon a time back in the 70s, the 80s, maybe, 1 in a million. It's more like 1 in 100 million now
Yeah, because I mean
because
it's a sport that's can be played all year round, and you think about just sports overall. Majority of sports can be played year round with indoor, and if you're lucky to be in a warm state, you can play outside all day.
and guess what? The little fact here now, a lot of college coaches now are looking at a lot of high school players outside of the California, Arizona, Texas pipeline
Yeah.
because there's a general feeling sometimes now that a lot of these players are playing too much baseball, that
Okay.
there's too much wear and tear on their arms and their bodies,
Mhm.
and where um, kids from the Northeast and Midwest, there's a cool down process with them. You're not generating that 100%, 110% full out throttle game of baseball because you're in a warm climate. Now it's back to fundamentals. It's about drills. It's about this. So now that's where like players from the Northeast and the Midwest and colder climates are getting a little bit more attention. You know, but I just think the game itself is wonderful. Just don't get caught up in a trap.
Hey, I like that. I mean, that's a perfect ending to to that talk, especially with just focusing on your perspective and your viewpoints about what you've seen so far from the game. So now I would like to transition into just talking about a little bit about you more personally. So
Okay,
we're gonna get into like the nitty grits of maybe your past, like, a little bit. So uh you tell me at your own expense like what you're comfortable sharing, but
sure.
I want you to tell me about a difficult time you had in your life and how were you able to overcome it.
Yeah. There's been a couple of them. Well, obviously, when my brother passed away, I was 2 years old, so I didn't really experience the emotions, obviously, that my mom and dad did. but it was difficult to see as I grew up to see. My mom was a tough lady, and not that my dad wasn't. It's a unique story about what happened with my brother. He basically he went with my father on a trip to Mexico. Really, never been to Mexico, and really basically begged my father to go on this trip. And he's like, "Look, it's only for the weekend. Just maybe we'll go some other time." And my mom was like, "Just take him." And the bottom line is that when they were in Mexico, my brother was also a swimmer, baseball player and swimmer, and he went swim. He went. From what I understand, he dove in a pool and he hit his head and he drowned, and it
Wow.
was in Mexico. And so, um, obviously, like I said, at 2 years old, I didn't really experience the raw emotions that affected not only my mom and dad, but aunts, uncles, my sister, my cousins. But as in growing up and seeing the pain that they still endured year in and year out. He passed away in July. You could see the temperature in July. Not only is it, I mean the temperature of emotions, and to see that it was very difficult for me to see. And then
Mm.
more and more, it was difficult for me to kind of go as I got older. It kind of went like, man, I had a brother. I've got my sister. And I love my sister. She's wonderful. She's outstanding. But there's something about having that brother, and
Yeah.
when it's taken away from you, it Anthony, my best friends I hold in the highest regard because they're like my brother.
Like
They're
family.
they've taken the place of my brother. But once again, to see the pain of my mom and dad, and now with me being a father, I could not even imagine. I
Mhm.
could not even imagine. So that has taught me a lot in seeing that, and that's that was difficult for me over a long period of time. When I was 21 years old, I was in a major car accident. I went through a
Wow.
windshield and back. I was in ICU for God, I want to say 5 days, 5 or 6 days. And once again, the pain. So it happened. It happened by Lake Tech actually. So we lived over by North Center by Lincoln and Montrose, and when it happened, obviously when they took me to the hospital, they took me to Ravenswood Hospital. Um, I was able to communicate with the paramedics. They obviously called my mom and dad. Um, as they were wheeling me in, my mom and dad were there. They just came in when they were wheeling me in, and I'll never forget seeing my dad and the look of anguish on his face, and he couldn't take it. He walked away. In his eyes, he was thinking, I think I'm going to lose another son.
Yeah.
Now my mom was with me, and I looked at her, and I couldn't talk because my whole face was it's a mess. But I looked at her and I just kind of threw my eyes, kind of looked at her and kind of said that I'm not going anywhere. And it was my dad, and went through a lot, but I do remember both a nurse and a doctor came to me and said, we don't know what if the outcome was going to be really bad, fatal, but you certainly had a will to live, and that will was my mom and dad, and my sister, thinking about all of that. So that was another dramatic time, and then obviously losing parents. It's tough, but I still think my father passed away at a young age. He was 72 years old, and but with what he gave me, not only life lessons, but he had a great sense of humor. I mean, the ultimate compliment that was bestowed upon me was my aunts and uncles kind of saying to me, "You're just like your dad." I'm like, "All right, man, that's cool. I'm all right with that." And so when he passed away, I had to do the eulogy for him, but it was about how he affected so many people, he was kind of like, I don't know if you know It's a Wonderful Life, but he was kind of like the George Bailey kind of guy, where that's what he was. I mean, he was respected, adulated, a wonderful, wonderful guy. Thankful to this day that that I had him as a parent for as long as I did. And then, of course, when my mom passed away, that was another difficult thing. But the only thing is, Anthony, with her, she had already started experiencing dementia, and she wasn't totally overcome by it. She actually kind of passed away tragically. She fell down the stairs and and she broke her neck, and that's how she passed away. But um, you know, when I see dementia, and I see how it overtook her to a degree, and I see how this horrible disease is affecting so many people. Um, it that was a not disturbing time, but it was a very tough time for me, to see that. But you know what? That's life, though. Anthony, that's life. That's how it is, and and once again, going back to my mom and dad, they've always told me that, like, you got to take the good with the bad. You got to take the bad with the good, whatever you want to put it. And that's what you have to do. And so thankful that they've always preached that to me, and those are the rough spots in life, but that's what happens. And and as a parent, and you look at kids and you just want nothing but the best for them, and you don't want anything to happen to them. You don't want anything to happen to them. So but yeah, so I have no, I mean, that's thank you for asking and bringing that
Hey,
out.
I really appreciate you opening up to me. I know that's those are a lot of like services to touch on, but just as you reminded me about your car crash, I was thinking about when you were able to get through, and like survive, and be in the hospital, and you had your mom and your parents there for you. I was thinking like that could be a sign of your brother protecting you, like a guardian angel.
Spot on, dude. Spot on. Spot on. Wow, that's a great observation. That's how I felt. That's
Yeah.
exactly how I felt. That's a great observation. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly how I felt. Yeah. Yeah. I think my sister might have mentioned that also. So yeah, yeah, that's spot on. And it's funny about my brother, though, not funny, but the thing about my brother is that um my oldest son, Christopher, um as my mom was battling dementia, that it affects your short-term memory,
Mhm.
but your long-term memory is not affected. As a matter of fact, people with dementia, they are very nostalgic. um so my brother was a lefty. Christopher's a lefty. Features were kind of similar. And as my mom, in the early stages, as my both of my sons were outside playing catch, I could see my mom gazing out at my son, at Christopher, because he's a lefty and playing baseball.
Mhm.
And I could see her just gazing in like almost like a tunnel vision of seeing her son in Christopher and her grandson.
Mhm.
And um, it's a gaze unlike you would ever see any other place. It was just any other time. It was just you could almost see the mind working of, like, that's my son. That's him. And and I had mentioned that to Christopher more than a couple of times. I said, "Boy," he said, and a lot of, and there were a lot of similarities, I guess, with me and my brother also. But I noticed that. I noticed that with him. So seeing that, but yeah, like you mentioned about my brother, he's. I still think that he's the guy that's putting his hand down on my shoulder and kind of going, all right, go this way, go that way, and and that's why I'm involved in coaching in baseball. That's why I love the game so much, and he's the guy that's still, he may not be here physically, and he's certainly here, in spirit. So thanks for recognizing that.
Hey, no problem. I think you can just counter that collectively as a group and just call that your main why, that keeps pushing you besides your immediate family that you have.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And let me tell you, Anthony is as we're talking about, some of the trades. I think the biggest accomplishment, my legacy. I might be jumping the ship here a little bit, but my biggest legacy, Anthony, are my kids,
Okay.
hands down. Do I wish I had a corner office that was overlooking, downtown? Yeah, sure, whatever. I don't know. I wouldn't suggest my path to anyone as far as like work wise. I've done so many things. I was involved in the film industry in the late '80s.
Wait, was you an actor?
I did a little bit, yeah, little acting here and there. But I went to Columbia College actually. So going back, grammar school, same as DePaul Grammar School down by DePaul University, Gordon Tech High School, and then I went to Columbia College, and I got involved in broadcast communications. Dabbled a little bit in sports broadcasting. I actually one of the great moments for me was I was able to I was in the booth with Vince Scully and Joe Garagio. They used to do the Saturday baseball game of the week, and every time they came to Chicago, through my friend who worked for the White Sox, he introduced me to NBC Sports regionally. So I worked in I don't know if you're familiar with Vince Scully at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, the best baseball broadcaster ever. In when I met him and actually to work with him was just it's crazy. I was just like, wow. I mean, I was like, oh my God, this guy's the best. And he was so wonderful, a great guy. Did that, went out to LA, worked on a couple things. I worked on Pee Wee's Playhouse. A lot of people are like, yeah, I could have worked on this, but like, you worked on Pee Wee's Playhouse? Yeah, I did. I worked on the Christmas special. I did a little bit of acting, just extra stuff or whatever it is. Came back here, worked for Nike for 3 years. Worked for Sony for I believe 4 years, 5 years, something like six, maybe 6 years. Um, I did some other things here and there. I managed some bars, whatever my cousin's bar, and then I got involved in Theater of the Lake. Um, but it is not the route that I would suggest for anyone. It really is not. I will tell you though, Anthony, a lot of stories. I could continue going on and on, but the bottom line is there's a lot of stories. I met a tremendous amount of great people that I've hopefully taken and taken these stories and given them to my kids. Um, and if I fell off the face of the earth tomorrow, I would say it was a pretty good journey. Not bad. It was a traditional, far from it, but I'm not a traditional guy. I'm kind of a quirky guy. But the bottom line is that my kids are my legacy. That's what I feel that they are. And Anthony, what I used to tell my kids every time I was dropping them off at school, I would say to them, be a leader, not a follower. Always say please and thank you. And we would say that every single day, to the point where I'm driving, I look in the rearview mirror, both of the boys in the back seat, rolling their eyes, be a leader, not a follower. Always say please and thank you.
Mhm.
But when it's, and say to my daughter, Abby, be a leader, not a follower. Always say please and thank you. And they'll talk when the teacher's talking. It had to be for her. But but you know what? It made an impact on them, and I can honestly say I could be more proud of my kids and how they lead their lives and how they are becoming leaders and they're not followers and they say please and thank you all the time. It's a foundation for having manners and just generally being a great human being. And as I said that to my kids, I realized there's a whole lot of kids out there, including you, that didn't say it every single day, but they're doing it. What they're doing it. So I didn't mean to jump the gun on probably another question you had, but I just felt I just went with the flow. So
Oh, that's
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 it.
great.
So,
I think those are the little things that are gonna stick with your kids. I think every child that's fortunate enough to have like someone like a mentor or a parent, someone they look up to, someone like instills those little things in you that you remember throughout the course of time. And so like for me, my parents are like really religious, so like we would do a prayer going to
Hmm.
the school, just to be grateful for another day of life and, overall to be appreciative of everything that we do have. So, I'm sure your kids, like, you know, even like if they talk about you ever, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, I remember my dad saying me that, telling me that all the time.
Oh yeah. They may roll their eyes here or there, but they do. But the bottom line is also, Anthony, I love the city of Chicago.
Yes, sir. Yes,
I
sir.
love the city of Chicago. You knock down my city, man, you're in for a battle.
That's
Yes, we go through tough moments. Yes, we do. Unlike, I mean, with other major cities do, but I don't care. I don't want to compare I don't want to compare the city of Chicago to any other city. In my heart of hearts, I lived in LA for 4 years. Nice place to visit. Don't want to live there anymore, but
awesome.
but um, but the city of Chicago, it's me. It is emotionally, it is physically me. Sometimes I talk because sitting in the front room talking to you right now. That's the city of Chicago in me. It is my kids. It is my family. It's my wife. It's everyone. And Anthony, when I talk about the city of Chicago, the theater on the lake, dude, you know, the views of that place is Chicago personified. The
It's
lake,
gorgeous.
the skyline, and my son got married there in October, this past October, and the people at the wedding that came there and just absolutely, to me, I was like, well, first of all, him and his wife Priya are Chicago kids, true and true. Priya's family are Chicago, although they're her father's from Detroit, so he's a Detroit fan. But yeah, it is what it is. No, but anyway, but wonderful people. That's what I mean about the city of Chicago. You meet so many wonderful people. They're not fake. They're maybe honest to the point where you're like, maybe I don't like you anymore, But no, you do. But the city of Chicago is me. It is my inner being. It is me. And don't you dare criticize it. Maybe justifiably here and there, but you know what? I'll fight you to the tilt for that because I really do love the city of Chicago.
You bring up a good point. I was just telling my friend the other day, I consider to be the city of Chicago the Mecca of the Midwest.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Like
It's. I
everyone
think it's
that,
the mecca. I think it's the mecca of the world because regionally where it's located. Hey, do we? I mean, yeah, we get some extremes here and there, but not really weather-wise. I mean, it's. I mean, it's not San Diego. My son lives in San Diego. It's nice. But it's not also the Antarctica either, and we get all the seasons.
yeah,
We enjoy it. It's just such a wonderful city. It's such a wonderful city, and I will it'll always be me. Chicago will always be me.
most definitely. So, I appreciate you talking about your difficult times and, how you were able to overcome that. Transitioning back into baseball now, I
Mhm.
want you to give me the three most memorable experiences of being around the game of baseball so far. It can be going to watch a game. It could be seeing your kid do something. It could be being a part of a team. Anything that comes to your head, top three memorable experiences.
Okay. Whew. Um, let me start out. Let me start off with the White Sox. Okay. Um, I mean, 2005 was outstanding. It was a World Series, man. We captured a World Series title. I always felt that team personified those teams that I loved back in the 70s and the 80s. Also, that it just culminated to 2005. So it's really that's such a wonderful experience. It again. It wasn't just about winning the World Series. About my brother being a White Sox fan, about my mom and dad being a White Sox. There was so many emotions. all my friends, really good friends, and their families that were White Sox fans. It really, it really, God, it was so memorable. It was so wonderful. It was a great. I had the opportunity to go. Actually went to Houston for the games. So I was able to enjoy when they won it firsthand right there at the ballpark. I
Wow.
thought it was so great. Um, Another experience, you know, actually, it's kind of White Sox also. Um, it's when I was a kid and I used to go to bat day and I used to get a bat. I can't believe they used to do that, but yeah, they gave out bats to kids and I got a bat. Or
Like a
I
wooden
would get a
bat?
hat. Yeah, it's a wooden bat. Yeah, I remember
Wow.
they had the regular like natural wood ones, and then they used to give out blue ones. They gave out red ones. I guess it's based on the color of the uniform. But yeah, it was such a great thing. It was like, man, I got this bat. It was bat day. You had to make sure you got there early enough because you got to get a bat. It was like the first 15,000 fans, and that was it. My mom and dad were they were like, we wake up wake me up at 8 o'clock in the morning, man. Be at the ballpark at 10 and be in line, be ready to go, get that bat. You know, it was hat day, had hat day. It was all the promotions they had back in the '70s. Those are memorable experiences for me, and I loved being at the ballpark and I think I might have been the only White Sox fan that did not go to Disco Demolition.
What is that?
Disco Demolition. Oh wow! I just realized that. You ready for a little history here?
Yeah.
Okay. Disco Demolition happened in July 1979, I believe, 78, whatever in there. It was a local radio DJ that disdained disco music, hated it. He was Steve Dahl worked for the Loop, um, and he Mike Veck, Bill Veck owned the team. Mike Veck was the son of Bill Veck, and they had to do something to bring people into the stands because they were not a very good team. So they had this Steve Dahl, who was a local DJ that had a big following, rock and roll following. So he had this promotion. They call it Disco Demolition, where they went out to the ballpark at Comiskey Park, and they were going to blow up disco records. So if you came to the game with a disco album, you got it for 79 cents. It was 79.1, 79, yeah, 79.1. And then you gave the album. They collected all these albums. They put them in these big bins and they blew them up. And so Disco Demolition got out of hand. Like all these rock and roller fans or whatever, they had like the ballpark handled, I think, 50,000 people. They had almost like 60, 70, 80,000 people there in the space, in the area of Comiskey Park. And so when that happened, it went out of control, and these kids stormed the field and really basically tore up the field, and they're like, "Oh, disco sucks," all this stuff, and really it just got so out of hand that the White Sox had to forfeit. It was a doubleheader, and they had to forfeit the second game because the field was just they just tore it apart, couldn't get it back together. They played the Detroit Tigers. The Tigers were supposedly fearful for their lives. It was a bunch of rock and roll kids out there, just you know, to them having the time of their lives. But the thing is that it was a big deal, national news, blah blah blah, and now when we revisit it, everyone in my generation, I swear to God, Anthony said, "Oh, I was there," which means that there were probably at least 1 million people there. So I would be the first one to say that I wasn't there. I can honestly tell you, I was in California at that time. We'll talk about a memorable event that I was not at. But I digress. In my third memory, Anthony, was to see both of my sons representing the Chicago Public League All-Star, being on the All-Star team and being able to play on a field that they loved.
Mm.
My son Christopher was the starting center fielder for that game. They played the Captain League. It's who they played. It was an annual All-Star game, and then my son Brennan came in to pitch. He pitched inning, I think 1 2/3 innings or whatever, and he was out in the mound of the same mound that he saw so many of his heroes, pitch off of. You know, to me that's a great memory. And I'm gonna jump a little bit more on memories. I'm gonna just give you one tiny bit one more if you don't
Yeah.
mind, because I don't want to exclude my daughter. She was the biggest cheerleader, advocate, supporter of my sons in baseball, and I'll never forget that. She was the one that was always like, "You got this, Christopher," or "You got this, Brendan," and she was the loudest voice in those stadiums or in the fields that they played. And to me, that's such a memory for me because she used to come to all my practices. I always had her. She was my little assistant coach. So I kind of had to give you four memories, but that's my daughter was unending support for my boys. It made such a great memory for me, and then of course being my little assistant coach. I'll never, it's just wonderful. So I had to give you just one little extra that kind of add the addition to my sons and their appearances. So
No,
yeah.
that's really cool to hear. I think I can just tell, like, again, you're such a family guy, so speaking highly of your kids and just creating all the experiences you've gained so far can just like can connect to them in some matter. I also thought you were gonna add, I mean, maybe I should extend this list now to the five memorable experiences with my future guests because of all the memories you've had to say. But I thought you were going to add the state playoff run you had recently.
Oh yeah. Well, you told me that. Yeah. Oh, 100%. Are you kidding me? Oh, that was quite the memorable
Tell me
experience.
about that.
Oh, Anthony, it was this was truly a team effort. It really was, and we go back to role players and everything else, but the run that we had was fantastic, and it really kind of it fed off of um, not accomplishing what we thought we were going to accomplish in previous years. So these guys kind of had a little bit of chip in their shoulder. We had a good blend, great chemistry, um, and that run you could just see that truly they learned from their mistakes. They really did, and we made plenty, throughout the season. But they learned from their mistakes, and they knew they had something because Anthony, like St. Lawrence, St. Lawrence has always been a top program. All the Southside baseball, high school baseball teams are top notch programs. Not that other ones aren't, but they're really they're elite. And when we beat St. Lawrence, when we beat Mount Carmel, that fed into this. Hey, wait a minute, we've got something here, you know. Um, and and the kids were just all together. They were all in one. They understood what it took to be successful, not to just win, but to be successful. You don't necessarily win to be successful. And they took that and they learned from it. And that was our run. And when we went downstate, we ran into a buzzsaw of a pitcher. This guy, apparently, I guess he was the number 3 pitcher in the state of Illinois, maybe the number 2 pitcher. And so, we lost that game. And then we lost to Quincy Notre Dame in the third place game. But we were the fourth place team, and you don't hang your head on that, man. This team, they fought so hard, they worked so hard. Once again, you put into this game, you get out of this game what you put in this game, and that's what they did. So oh yeah, I mean 100%. Yeah, you should do 5 for whoever you're talking to next, because 3's really, I did personally. That's what I did just within my inner being. But that's in there, no doubt. There is no doubt. And the coaching, the coaching on behalf of all of our staff, our pitching coach, hitting coach, everyone, all the coaches that were involved, they were extraordinary. extraordinary. And Sammy, led the helm, and he had the right blend. But yeah, that our assistant coaches were outstanding, phenomenal. And the thing is, Anthony, with this team, like I said, there were times that we were just like, what's going on here? And we had to, you know, it's tough. It's tough to reprimand a team to kind of tell them, listen, man, what's going on? It's tough to do that. But these assistant coaches, all of us together collectively did this to make them better, to make sure they're successful, to not bring them down, but to elevate them and say, learn from this. And they did it. And so that's what made that run so special. That they were just, it is a tremendous, great a bunch of kids. Great. And you know what? It's not going to stop. We've been elevated to 3A, and we're in the Blue Conference now, and we lost 9 seniors. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yes.
But you know what though? We've got players now that are willing to step up, and I told these guys, I said, be careful. You got a target on you now. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's 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 tough to make your way up, but when you're up, it's even tougher to stay there.
Yep. Yeah.
Everyone wants to knock you down. But I told these guys, and they're going to have the fever, they're going to have that hunger, and we're gonna do everything we can to put them in that situation to be very successful. And that's why I love this. I love high school baseball, but I truly love this team, the DePaul College Prep, because when you're heading a program, Anthony, it's difficult. There's many factors that you're accountable for: transportation, other teams and all that stuff. And being at DePaul Prep, I'm an assistant coach, and I'm able to coach, and I love it. Absolutely love it. It rejuvenated me, So, but so yeah. So there you go. There you go. That's as I keep chatterboxing on and on and on. I'm sorry to me to take so much of your
No,
time.
you're providing the viewers so much knowledge and so much perspective, insight to what you know already. So I definitely appreciate you sharing. I only have like maybe 1 or 2 more questions for you before the show ends, but I
Okay.
appreciate your time so far. Um, so I know you kind of like touched up on this a little bit earlier about like your biggest motives, your biggest why, and the lessons you've learned through the game of baseball so far. But just for advice to future or current athletes that are trying to manage their life between school, social life, and lastly performing at an elite level, what advice would you give them um uh, to be successful in general?
Time management,
Okay.
time management, time management. Sacrifice.
Okay.
Um, you have to sacrifice. It just no human being can take on as much as they want to, especially kids now in these days with social media and everything. I can tell you, Anthony, when I look at these, like some of the kids that work at Theater in the Lake, and they come into high school, and they got this job, and they come over, they got so much homework. I've seen it through all of my kids also, and to balance homework, social life, and sports and activities and so forth. I don't think I could do it. To be honest with you, I don't really honestly. I look at, man, I'm amazed. I'm simply amazed. But to balance all that, you need that time management skills. You need to, it comes down to, making lists, and making sure that you have to incrementally dedicate yourself to that list of what you're doing, and kind of be strict at it if you want to be at the elite level of everything that you want to do. It's difficult. It's extremely difficult, but you can do it. It can be done. And sacrifice. Yeah, sacrifice is there. There's going to be a time that you know I got this much homework due. I got to. I have to do it. I have to be done by Monday. Oh, guess what? We're all getting together on Saturday, and then Sunday I got football, or want to watch football, or want to watch. something's got to give.
Mhm.
Something's got to give, man, because it's just if it doesn't, then that academic feature starts waning a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
It gets chipped away. It doesn't come down of one big, like one big block. It gets chipped away. You got to stop the chipping. So that's what it is. But you know what though, Anthony, like I said, with kids now, and also with the mental health of kids coming post pandemic, um, it's a tough gig, man. It's equal to being a CEO. You're being the CEO of yourself. That's a tough gig, and like I said, I don't know if I would be able to handle it the way the kids, like including you, the way you guys, what you do with what you do. And but yeah, that's to me in being observant. Should I practice what I preach? I should have back when I was a kid, but once again, I learn and I grow, and then I learn through my kids, and I learn through young people like you. I'm so thankful that I'm able to work with so many young people. It keeps me going. Keeps me up to date. Yeah, I still talk about the 70s and the 80s, especially when music and all of that. But yeah, I'm catching up to some of the music. I can still listen to that, but nonetheless, but yeah, that's to me, that's what I feel that kids have to do, and it's very difficult, very very difficult. But as a parent, it's a delicate balance of guiding and instructing. You can guide and hope that they can take that guidance, and sometimes you have to put the iron fist down and instruct, and sometimes that's not responded in a very good way.
Mhm.
Why are you getting all over me? Look, I know, I get it. I get this. And sometimes I think as parents, what we have to do is that we get wrapped up in being such a parent that I think sometimes we have to step back and think about when we were a junior or a senior in high school. And when I had a messy room every once in a while, I'm not saying it's the best thing, but I did it. So I can't be hypocritical either. And there's
Mhm.
sometimes that I tell them, I'm like, yeah, I remember I did that. And sometimes it's, do as I say, not as I did. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, but that's how I feel. That's what needs to happen, at least in this time and space. But um, don't underestimate kids, though. They're the youth, this generation of youth of everyone is so powerful. Don't underestimate them, because if you underestimate them, you're gonna get kicked in the pants, man. You know, you really are, because your generation. I know there's some out there that's not the best, but I still like to look at the positive aspect of things, and I see so much good out there that I'm not really concerned about leadership in the future. I'm kind of concerned about leadership now, but I'm not concerned about leadership in the future. I think our world's going to be in a good space, hopefully, with the generation that's coming through right now.
Uh, Again, yeah, like, emphasizing time management is crucial. I think I learned a lot being at the lakefront as I was still in school at the time at DePaul,
Mhm.
trying to transition into working, but also still staying on task with my education, making sure I complete deadlines with assignments. So I think that's in those terms, those are all crucial ways that like I was able to improve. But as it relates to just growing and learning within the sports industry and just being a student or just growing in life, you have to be able to make sacrifices like you mentioned.
Yeah, Anthony, I think one more thing, if I may add.
Yeah.
Um, it's difficult for kids or students to hear this, but I think you need to have a little empathy for your teachers.
Mm.
Um, it's their job. It's not the best paying job. I mean, for some it is. Not just teachers, administrators. Everyone involved in the education process
Yeah.
at any level. I think as students, if you can get over why is he giving me so much homework? And he doesn't understand me. She doesn't understand me. She doesn't get me. I don't get this. If you could just put that aside for a second or two and empathize with what they have to go through. In other words, if you can put yourself in their shoes for just a minute or two. I know a lot of teachers. I know there's one young lady that I know from that I met through 300 Lake. She's a math teacher that I believe she's highly heralded because not only the work involved that she puts towards her students, but she has gained their respect. She's gained some of their adulation because she leads by example. And I know a lot of other teachers like that too. Um, I just think that sometimes that kids need to empathize for teachers. They're like umpires. You know,
How
they
you?
got to make those calls, man. And sometimes they're not the best calls, but they're going to make them anyway.
That's true.
So I think that I think if you do that, you develop your humanity a little bit more so, and you become a much better. But not that you're not a good person or anything like that, but you increase the goodness of being a person, of being a genuine human being. So yeah. So I would say that if you could just empathize with teachers and administrators and just the whole education process, it will help you out in the long run. You'll be
No,
there one of these days.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Uh, I appreciate it. This is my last question to you, before my show closes for today. Um, so on my show recently, I've been doing this with some of my guests. Um, I call this the current topic time.
Okay.
So, so I'm gonna give you a list of um topics, and you're out of those topics that I suggest, you're gonna pick one that we're gonna talk about for a couple minutes. All right.
Okay.
So
I'm ready.
here are the topics. Artificial intelligence, so AI,
Mhm.
social media, immigration, migrants, and the US, and more specifically in Chicago, uh climate change, or pros and cons.
Boy, those are all different. Those there's a hotbed for all of those. To be honest with you, um, I'm sorry. You said AI. What was that for AI?
So AI, social media, immigration, or migrants, climate change, or pros and cons.
Okay. Um, I'm gonna go with social media because it incorporates all of that. That's what social media does. It
Right.
incorporates everything, and I think we talked about this before, and we could go into it now. Social media is everything that you had just mentioned. Maybe not. Well, no, AI also. AI social media is because in Instagram you can integrate AI and Instagram and so forth. And then there's a firestorm of AI being involved with, like, is it going to replace the human being? I don't think it is. I think eventually it's going to help the human being. Um, not I'm just not well educated just yet to be able to really say a whole lot about that. But social media, as I tell our kids, it's like a rope. It's either you're going to utilize it in a very productive way
Mhm.
to help people and help yourself, whatever, or you're going to get the burn from the rope and it's going to hurt and you're going to hurt yourself. That's what social media is like. It's like a rope. If you misuse a rope, bad things could happen. But if you utilize it in the proper way, where you could throw it in to help someone out, pull someone out, if you utilize it in a way that it reinforces something, that's what social media is like. You know, I kind of liked it. I mean, they say that Facebook is like for old people. It is, and I love it because I can still be in tune with a lot of friends and family that I don't necessarily see every day or talk to them, not even every day or whatever. but I see their trials and tribulations. And a friend of mine just lost an aunt a couple of days ago, and he posted it, and it kind of gave me the opportunity to say, hey man, I'm really sorry to hear about that, and doing it through social media, maybe it's not as personal, but it does show that you're thinking of them or thinking of that person. Um, so yeah, so social media, I think, like I said, is great. You know, there is a dark side to social media, the underlying stuff of like photos and permissions and people utilizing this and utilizing that. Anthony, I don't know, man. We can't go through life paranoid. We
Yeah.
just can't. We just can't. It just it's we've got what we have. You make the best of what we have. You just can't. You can't if you're always turning your head and looking back at because of social media. Paranoid that they told me now because of this image I posted that. Da, 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 da. I don't know, man. You're gonna get a sore neck.
Yeah.
Really. So it has yeah. I mean, it has its good things and it has its bad things. It generates a lot of controversy. It generates angst. Anthony, it generates angst. I've been involved in that too. And like I talked about the city of Chicago, and there's, it's kind of funny again, old people's old book, Facebook, but there's a lot of groups, and, and there's a group about Italian beef, okay, and the reason why I joined is because I like Italian beef. It's a great sandwich. If there's a couple places I can go to try them out, yeah, I like it. My dad liked Italian beef. I'm in Chicago. Hey, you like your Italian beef or pizza or something like that? Someone could post something about a place about Italian beef, and all the comments after that, are you kidding me? That sucks. That's the worst stuff. Blah blah blah. I'm like, my God, the poor guy just posted that he had an Italian beef from this one place, and someone's got to rip it apart. Like,
Yeah.
that's what I mean by that term of keyboard warrior.
It's a lot of criticism.
Yeah, there's no need to have criticism about Italian beef. You know, migration, boy, but that's in social media also.
Yeah.
And that whole thing that's going on there, it's I can tell you personally, for me, I have a tremendous amount of disrespect for the governor of Texas. I can tell you that right now. I think he's on an agenda. I think he thinks that this is his limelight. Um, but that's all. That's all in social media also. So that's what I mean. The social media encompasses pretty much everything that you had mentioned. There's pros and cons of everything. Social media. Social media is about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift.
Oh my gosh. Don't get me started on that.
See what I mean? Though, there we go. You can just get it going. To me, I blame the networks more than I blame Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
If you guys are cutting to her all the time, that's your fault, dude. You're the
And,
ones that are whipping up all that stuff. Taylor
and it's,
Swift's the most. She's the most. She's the most recognizable person in the world. You
yeah.
know,
She's getting
you're doing it.
she's giving the NFL so much money just off of viewership. So
Yeah, she has. And again, it goes back to revenue again, right? We're talking about all that about pro sports and everything. It's about revenue. I don't have any angst towards Taylor Swift. I mean, that's you do what you do. Is it a little sickening? Yeah, I think it is. I think it is. And Travis Kelce now is doing his little heart thing. Oh no, that's not. Because of Taylor Swift. Well, only it is because of her. Whatever. If you want to have a romance and on a camera, fine. Whatever it is. I personally wouldn't want to have that, but again, social media storm with all of that. We'll talk about a current event. That's about as current as you can get. But it's trivial. It really is.
yeah.
If you whittle it all down, it's about a guy and a girl that like each other. That the guy's really good at football, she's really good at music, and you know, is
It's
she
what's
gonna
good.
hate? Is she gonna hate him later on and have a top 10 hit? Probably.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that. So,
Do
uh,
do you would you can you remember when like social media was like impacted you or like just overall what's big in society to the point where you really had to take notice because you grew up a time without media, and for me personally, when I was growing up, social media just started, like Facebook just started getting big,
Mhm.
and then shortly after you have Instagram, Snapchat, that all like I can remember in high school, but like all these apps, especially like Facebook, because I feel like it's just been at the center of everything with Meta. Um,
Mhm.
really kind of took its own. So can you remember like when that started for you, when you started using it and stuff?
Um, Anthony, it's a good question. It's a great question because I remember when it made the biggest impact. Um, like I said, you mentioned little stuff like when my mom passed away, I posted it, and so many people are so gracious to comment back or reach out to me. That was wonderful. But and stuff like that. That's kind of the obvious. But the one thing that it really, I kind of went like, wow, this is pretty powerful. Um, every year, our baseball team would participate in the polar plunge.
Mhm.
The down by North Avenue Beach, and and of course, to be involved in the polar plunge, you have to raise funds. And it's for the Special Olympics, which is near and dear to my heart. My kids were all involved in Special Olympics also, um, but near and dear to my heart. And the amount of donations and the amount of money that we generated, and it really was a lot of it had to do with social media, Facebook especially. Um, it really made that impact on me. Like, wow, this is a very powerful tool. We were able to raise a really good amount of money strictly because of Facebook and friends of mine that I wouldn't go knocking on their door and going, "Hey, by the way, you got a couple of dollars for, our our team's jumping into the lake?" I always said is the best time to tell a coach to jump in a lake. That was the time. That was me. But yeah, that's when it really I realized I'm like, man, there's this is pretty powerful. And we generated and it shared on and on and went more and more and more. And it that's where I felt that social media was really um, important, for what it's worth, um, and like I said, I reconnected with a friend of mine that I had seen when I left Los Angeles in a long time, and now we're connecting through Facebook all the time, and I get to see what he's doing, he gets to see what I'm doing, and it's one of those guys that I thought I wasn't going to see ever again, and he was a great guy. He lives in Los Angeles. When we were connected, I had talked to him or seen him for, oh man, a good 10 years maybe, whatever. And then I found out, like he was the mayor of Burbank. I'm like, what the heck? I mean, a lot of stuff, he found out a lot of stuff on me, and we're really close because of that. It does create kind of a bond, and in a long distance bond. You may not see these people 10 years, 15 years, but you're still there and you're still in each other's lives in one manner or another. And,
Mhm.
and then on Facebook, I think the genuine self does come out. I think it does. I think genuine or not genuine, but ingenuous or genuine, it does come out. So, and same thing with Instagram and so forth. I love Instagram because I've got theater in the lake. I've got sunrises and sunsets. I've got the skyline. I love taking pictures, and that's the little thing. I was also just a little thing. I was a photographer also. I worked for Wilson Sports. I did the Little League World Series for 4 years in a row as a professional photographer. So I love photography. So that's why I like Instagram, to be able to share like these images. They're very powerful images. So anyway, so there you go. That's social media, which encompasses pretty much everything that you mentioned. That,
I
that you
love it.
mentioned, but I think I still think it's a good thing. I still,
It is. I mean, it's kind of what I kind of allude from, like your philosophy from baseball, and just this so far with lessons, life lessons that you were able to learn and grow with. A lot of it just has to do with patience and wisdom that came along the way for you. So
Well, social media is like I had mentioned about being mentally tough. It's like you can't get too high, you can't get too low with it. You just got to stay at an even course with it, and just don't let the emotions get the best of you. That's it. That's really that simple. I think not simple, but that's one of the keys. So,
I agree. So that pretty much wraps up my show for today. I'm gonna give a clap out. Thank you, Fernando, so much.
oh, Anthony, thank you so much. I'm sorry. Did you ever see those little those toys that like the chatterbox toys, the teeth that you wind
Yeah,
up and they go. I think
yeah,
that's what you just interviewed one of those. Is what you did. It's just
yeah.
the big guns in the teeth. So,
I can actually put up the clapping emoji, so I'm gonna do that.
well, thank you so much. It was an honor and a pleasure, Anthony. I can't thank you enough for inviting me in your show. I think you're going to do some wonderful things. For all of those that are listening or are going to see this guy, it's a rising star. Let me tell you, it's a rising star, and the guy that keeps it on the level, though. You're a good man, Anthony. You're doing some wonderful things, and I couldn't be more proud of you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Um, and just to close off, like as you mentioned, I wanted to thank everyone for listening today. Your support goes a long way. So signing off, this is your host, Anthony or Double A on the Backyard Talks podcast show with Fred Huret. I can't even say. I'm sorry.
Huerta, yeah, Fred Huerta. You know what, Anthony? Is once when you said double A for your name,
Yeah,
sometimes I go by Fern Fred because it's like Fernando and Fred put together. So Fern Fred
Fern Fred.
is yeah, Fern Fred's another good one because, like I said, when I wake up in the morning and I look in the mirror, I'm like, who are you going to be today? I don't know. But so Fern Fred, you could be, like Sting, Cher, Pele, all those guys, Fern Fred. So anyway, but thank you so much, Anthony. Thank you.
Problem. So for anyone that's also listening, you can tune in for another week of this show, to listen to sports discussions and get inside perspective from student athletes, coaches, and sports fans. In addition, social media is being used more than ever before. So you can watch the show on YouTube to listen to current and past episodes. So I want to say again, thank you for everyone for listening, and I hope everyone has a good rest of their day.